I don't think I ever, I think I had just a kind of layman's view on mental illness for a long time. Just like growing up, I don't really remember the first time I heard about like mental illness. But I think the first time that I really just saw it firsthand was a long time ago, when I was about 9, I think, so about 10 years ago. My grandma moved in with us after she had a stroke, and she had dementia. Some days she wouldn't remember who I was or my sister or my mom. Other days she would be, herself. So obviously it's not the same mental illness. It's not necessarily a mental illness, but just dealing with her dementia with someone that was in just someone who was in my house and my family, was definitely an uphill battle. And I think the worst part about it was the inconsistency and the unpredictability. You really just, yeah, you just don't really ever know what to expect. Every day is different. And that was the first time that I really saw some form of mental illness with my own 2 eyes right in front of me. The first time I learned about mental illness and got a more sophisticated understanding of what it actually is in my 11th grade AP Psych class. Love that class. But there I learned just what specifically it means to be mentally ill, in terms of your relation to yourself, your relation to people around you, your relation to society. Yeah, so I definitely have experienced mental illness myself, most notably in the form of anxiety. I just am a very anxious person. I have a lot of anxiety, and I've had, first time I had panic attacks was in 4th grade. So for a long time, I've kind of known what that feeling is, but I won't say that I know, like I have any particularly insightful tips on how to even deal with it. It's something I really honestly struggle with on a day-to-day basis, especially recently in COVID times. Had a lot of anxiety and a bit of depression. So I've definitely felt it myself in small bursts. Thankfully, thank God, no one, at least in my immediate friend group or family, has had serious mental health problems. But like I said, just from my own experience, I think is my best window into understanding what it's like to live with that. But again, like I said, I really have only experienced it in very mild form, and like I said, particularly in anxiety. I think generally, mental illness is depicted well in mainstream media. I think one particular example that I really appreciate, and especially because I just saw it, just came out, season 4 of Big Mouth. I mean, Big Mouth in general, I think handles this subject really well, but especially the last season, they actually gave characters. There's a character called, I think it's Tito the anxiety mosquito, and like there's this cat this big sleepy cat that is supposed to be depression. And when you actually characterize these things and give them a voice, for me at least, it really makes it easier to see them as a character in my head, and to not, which makes them easier to fight. Just when you can identify the enemy, you can fight the enemy. And yeah, I mean, these things are a part of ourselves. The anxiety is myself, the depression is myself. So when I experience those things, if I see them as somebody else, I think it becomes easier to to attack. And something else that my friend mentioned when I was talking about this was that a lot of the situations the characters in Big Mouth are in which they get the anxiety and depression, are very relatable scenarios, or things that we all go through on a daily basis, especially just not being that far from middle school age, which is when the characters, just how the characters are. I remember so vividly so many of the things, and so much of the awkwardness and the the fears and anxieties that go with that time of puberty, and seeing other characters going through things that I went through, and dealing with them with these, at the same time there's humor infused in it. I just think it's this is just a big advertisement for Big Mouth. No, I think that it just it's a really cool way to see it, and when you start seeing it that way, it becomes easier to deal with. So I think the biggest thing to reduce the stigma, I mean, the stigma is always going to be there, especially if you're with someone that you don't know that well, talking about things like your mental health, your anxiety, your suicidal thoughts. They're hard things to talk about. They're hard things to bring up. I think the biggest thing to help with reducing that stigma and is just realizing for yourself that knowing, because this is true, that everybody, especially in a time like this, everybody, we're humans. We're all going through the same thing. We really all do have very, very similar experiences, personal experiences that are just similar to each other's. And I think realizing that will make it easier to have these conversations, because you then are going into the conversation not just to benefit yourself, not just to talk about yourself and to figure out your own problems. You're also, by doing that, by even talking about yourself, you're going to be helping the person next to you, even if you don't know it, even if that person doesn't even look at you while you're saying it, doesn't even say anything. Just talking about these things, and you're helping. I mean, it really is. And I just from personal experience, like whenever I hear my favorite celebrity talk about something that they've gone through that's similar to me, or if I just hear someone like on the bus talking about something they've been through, either way, it reminds me that we're all human. It reminds me that we're all in this together. The best advice I've ever gotten about mental health is my friend said to me once that there is no one way to deal with mental illness. There really is no one way. It's something that you have to. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of obvious, but like it also deserves to be said. You have to find what works for you. You have to, if you're struggling with something, talk to yourself about it. Start writing in a journal. Talk to your friends about it. Talk to your family about it. If you're not comfortable with them, find a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a therapist if you can. Look online, see what other people have said. There are a lot of resources that we have in today's world, and exploring every single one of those to the best of your ability is kind of your duty when you don't feel the best mentally, I feel like. And you have to do that, because like I said, there is no recipe. The advice that I would give to someone in a dark place is, and of course this is easier said than done, I know that better than anybody, but don't let the thoughts control you. Confront the thoughts, whatever thoughts are giving you a hard time. Dismissing them will, and running from them, distracting yourself from them, will only make them stay around stronger and longer. So don't do that. Confront them, but also and by doing and deal with them. Figure out the root of whatever you're feeling and why you're feeling that, and the best way to fix it. And if you can't change your situation, change your perspective. Again, easier said than done, but to the best of your ability, I think it's what you have to do. And once you do that, then you'll be able to be you. You won't be these thoughts, because that's what it often feels like. It feels like they're taking control over everything that you see and do. And that's not true. You have the control. Your emotions are felt, but your emotions are nothing more. Like they don't control your actions, and they don't control your thoughts. Those are things that you control. Yeah, just knowing that you have the control, I think, is the best advice that I could give. So my self-care routine, when it comes to mental just health in general, is whenever I'm feeling any kind of way, whenever I'm feeling anxious, my first thing to do, physical thing, easy to do, yawn. I'm telling you, it helps. It may sound really simple, but it helps. Also, kind of similar to that, just breathe. Remember that you can control your breathing. And when you kind of take ownership of your breathing like that, everything syncs up usually, especially if you count in your head. simple things. These are really simple things, and a lot of things I'm going to talk about right now are very cliche, but they're cliche for a reason. I think they really work. The next thing that I like to do is find something. It could be anything. Find something that I'm grateful for. Find something that excites me. Find something that will bring a smile to my face in any situation. If I'm really sad about this and this and this all went wrong, on the same day, at least, the sky is looking really pretty today. At least there's that. At least that's making me happy. And always find that one thing. Just literally one thing. Yeah, it's a great question. I didn't necessarily do any research into mental health or into trauma. I more did research into just Bruce as specifically as a character, and how he specifically deals with the trauma, just because there is 80 years of comic books, just so much research that could be done. It's such a rich character in terms of that. But the thing that I learned playing Bruce Wayne, actually being in his shoes and living that trauma for that 5 years, is it's all about willpower. I mean, that's how Bruce does it. And of course, that's easier said than done. So is everything that that I could say in this conversation about mental health. Everything is easier said than done. But the thing that Bruce taught me is that whatever you're going through, as long as you tighten your fists and say, I'm just gonna do it, I'm just gonna rip off the Band-Aid, I know that I can get through this, it really makes it easier. Bruce is somebody that had everything stripped away from him. He lost everything that he held dear while he was 11 years old-ish in an alley in Gotham one night. He lost everything. And when you lose everything, there's multiple ways to react to that. You could say, I'm in a lot of pain right now. I hate the world. I want other people to feel the pain that I'm feeling. Or you can say, I'm in a lot of pain right now. I want nobody to feel what I'm feeling. This is terrible. Bruce obviously opts for the second one. And one of the things that's interesting about the show is that I think it comments on the other way too, because a lot of the villains are born out of the same trauma that Bruce is, but choose to deal with it in a different way. And how it's connected with me in my personal life, just this idea of willpower, this idea of if you're determined to do something, you can do it. If you believe that you can do it, which is something that I truly believe because of Bruce. It's helped me in the way that if I was ever in real life scared to do something, scared to get a shot from a doctor or go down a slide, I would think to myself, Bruce wouldn't be scared of this. Bruce wouldn't even think twice about this. Bruce would just do it because he knew it had to be done. Not going down a slide, it doesn't have to be done, but you know what I mean. But and so I would just put myself in Bruce's shoes. I'd be like, all right, I'll just be Bruce right now and do this thing. And that way of thinking, it was something that was really useful for me.